Good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see you all here on this lovely afternoon for our program, Black Theater Go Home, the San Francisco Black Theater Movement. I'm very grateful to Kheven LaGrone, who helped organize this program with me, and to all our panelists that are here. We're in for a great discussion today. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge that we're in the area now known as San Francisco, which is the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who never forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place. We recognize that we benefit from living, working, and learning on their traditional homeland. And as uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the Ramaytush Ohlone ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. Yes, we also give an ancestral acknowledgement that was adapted from the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee. We honor the gifts, resilience, and sacrifices of our Black ancestors who toiled the land, built the institutions that established this nation's wealth and freedom, and survived anti-Black racism despite never being compensated nor fully realizing their own sovereignty. We acknowledge this exploitation of not only labor, but of our humanity, and through information sharing, we are working to repair some of the harms done by public and private actors. Because of their work, we are here, and we will invest in the descendants of their legacy. I'm Shauna Sherman, manager of the African American Center, which is on the third floor of the main library here. For almost 30 years, the African American Center has hosted programming and collected materials to celebrate and uplift the African American culture and history. The space is dedicated to Black people and supported by Black people. There's always something happening at the center. Please take some time to sign up for our newsletter, which is back there, and pick up a flyer to one of our upcoming programs. We always have something happening at the center. And we'd like to thank all the folks that support us in our work, including the original donors for the center, the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library, and our custodial and media services department, who work behind the scenes to help make our programs happen. So our program today is part of our One City, One Book celebration, which is honoring the work of Maya Angelou and the book, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. I still might have a few copies back there if you didn't get one when you came in. Dr. Angelou was a writer, singer, dancer, and a playwright. She produced several plays, including one in Oakland in 1976, and Still I Rise. So this program is dedicated to her. The program also corresponds to our exhibit up on the third floor in the main library, third floor here, called Black Theater Go Home, which is a series of posters, newspaper articles, and quotes going through the history of the Black theater movement in San Francisco starting in the early 1960s. And it was curated by Kheven LaGrone, who also curated this program for us today. Before we get started, I don't know, our panelists should be coming soon to the floor. Oh, we're here. Okay, so first up is going to be let me give you a bio for Kheven, because he's going to be speaking after Dr. Furaha. Kheven LaGrone is a playwright, essayist, curator. He's edited a collection of scholarly and academic essays on the color purple. Plays in his plays include The Legend of Pink, Pillow Talk, Group Therapy, and Pillow Talk was the Lambda Literary Award finalist. So as our panelists make it to the stage, I'm going to also introduce Dr. Mwanza Furaha. She is a performer, historian of San Francisco's Black theater movement. She joined every Black theater company formed in San Francisco and performed with Dr. Maya Angelou, Harold Nichols, and Carmen McRae. She was part of the Africanization of Black theater and Black culture. Many people, including Dr. Furaha, changed to Afrocentric names. Dr. Furaha still performs today, and she'll be the first one up at our mic to talk about her memories of Dr. Angelou. Thank you. Let's welcome the panel to the stage.
Hello, everyone. I am so honored to be here today, but they wanted me to take a few minutes to tell you about a little bit of time I had with Dr. Angelou when we did Blacks, Blues, Blacks. And when you watch that program, those 10 episodes, and the credits roll, and it says Blondell Breed, that's me, okay, just so you know, okay. But during that filming, one day we left to go for lunch or something, and we were on our way back to the station, and it was on 6th Street then, down towards the end on Brannan, past that end. And there was this man sitting on the road, on the sidewalk, and he was drunk, and he was dirty, and he reached up, and he did this at us, and I cowered back. And I looked at him, I guess with disdain. And she said to me, "Don't you ever look down your nose at someone because of the condition life has placed them in. What you want to do is thank that person because what they are is an example of what you don't want to be in your life. So be grateful. Don't be looking down." And when I left this country, and I saw people who really, really, really was poorer than me, then that lesson stayed with me on all my travels. And so I'm grateful to that woman until this day. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kheven LaGrone. I'm the curator. Okay. I'm going to read a short speech that I wrote last night. I'm not really a speaker, as those of you who know me knows that, but I'm going to start anyway. So, in the words of Marvin X, theater was the mother of the Black Power movement. He was recalling a part of the Black arts movement from 1965 to 1975. Black playwrights wrote revolutionary plays that inspired the leaders and thinkers of the Black Power movement. These leaders and thinkers brought the revolution back to the Black communities. For example, Huey Newton, co-founder of the Black Panthers, once said, "Marvin X was my teacher. Many of our comrades came from his Black arts theater." According to playwright Ed Bullins, before the Black arts movement, there had been no Black theater in San Francisco. A play with Negroes was usually written by white playwrights for a white audience. Sometimes a white play was produced with a Black cast, with Black people focused on proving themselves to white people. The Black arts movement introduced a new Black aesthetic centered on Black people. More and more Black playwrights wrote revolutionary plays for Black audiences. Nobody would produce those plays, so Black theater people proudly started their own Black theaters to produce them. The Black audiences decided for themselves what plays were good or acceptable. When I was a boy in San Francisco, I heard adults talk about some of these plays. I remember seeing Afrocentric titles and posters with proud and beautiful Black people. Black boys like me had a place. Even before I knew what Black pride was instilled in me. So thank you to the artists of the Black arts movement, and thank you to everyone here today. Please be inspired and network. So thank you. Okay. I am going to introduce the moderator for this afternoon. Is AeJay Atonis Marquis, they, them, is a multi-hyphenated performance artist, scholar, educator, and activist. Currently a PhD student at the University of California, Berkeley, their research explores queer, transgender, and non-binary voices in theater and dance. Their research also explores how these voices intersect with racial identity and contributes to Black and queer liberation. They have performed across the Bay Area as director, choreographer, actor, producer, and dramaturg. They will continue to combine scholarship and practice as part of their doctoral journey. So I'll introduce to you guys Dr. AeJay Mitchell, who also was the director of my first play. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I'm just in awe of being able to be on the stage with these four luminaries of the Black arts world in the Bay Area and in the nation. I am so thrilled to, as I start my journey in my PhD, to focus on Black art and Black art as liberation, and the Black arts movement is one of those inspirations. And being on the stage to listen and learn from this panel is such a thrill for me. I can't believe it. I can barely hold my excitement. So I'm gonna not talk a lot about myself today because that's not important for me, because I want to really hear the voices of those who have joined us on this panel today. I'm going to start by introducing Marvin X. Give some love, Marvin. Yes. Marvin X is a co-founder and most prominent voice of San Francisco's Black arts movement. His 1965 play, Flowers for the Trashman, was one of the first plays of San Francisco's Black arts movement. In 1966, Marvin X, playwright Ed Bullins, and others co-founded the Black Arts Theater in the Fillmore. Huey Newton, co-founder of the Black Panthers, once said, "Marvin X was my teacher. Many of our comrades came from his Black Arts Theater." Some more love for Marvin X, please. And before we introduce the rest of the panel, Marvin X, we would love to hear from you to talk a little bit more about your quote, "The theater was the mother of the Black Power movement." What did you mean by that?
First of all, you've given me 3 minutes. Yeah, so I don't know how I'm gonna deal with it, but what I can deal with initially, I can give you an example of one of the brothers that was in the Black Arts Theater, and his name was George Murray, Reverend George Murray. His father was a preacher, and so when he came to San Francisco State, basically what I'm dealing with right now is what happened at San Francisco State. What happened when we got into plays, George Murray had we used to call him Worry George Murray. That's what we called him. But he got in a play called First Militant Preacher by Ben Caldwell from New York. So this is one of the plays that we got off with. So George, as I said, he was Worry George Murray. So George was kind of, I guess, worried. So when he got in the First Militant Preacher, he got his stuff together. And he became a militant preacher. Before that, he was just basically following his father's steps as a preacher, but he was not militant. Once he got in that play, he became a militant preacher. Now, what happened to him after he became the militant preacher, George Murray became the, I think he was the, he became a Black Panther, okay? So from the militant preacher, he became the Black Panther, okay? I think he was minister of education. That was his title. So, and he was an English student, and he became a professor at San Francisco State. So, as the Panther movement grew, and after that initial thing that he got from being schools in school in black arts, then he went to jail. He went to jail, and he spent, as a result of being a Black Panther, and he spent several months in jail. And so when he came out, he almost, well, actually, he did go back to the preacher road in real life. But initially, it was the first militant preacher that took him to Black consciousness. So I'll leave it with that subject there, George Murray, but I'm going to come back on this again.
Of course.
All right.
Thank you. Yes, art as the catalyst for the politic for the Black consciousness. Thank you so much. I'm going to talk about Dr. Mwanza Furaha, formerly Blundell Breed, is a performer and a historian of San Francisco's Black theater movement. She joined every Black theater company formed in San Francisco. She performed with Dr. Maya Angelou, Harold Nicholas, and Carmen McRae. She was part of the Africanization of Black theater and Black culture. Many people, including Dr. Furaha, changed to Afrocentric names. Dr. Furaha still performs today. So, Dr. Furaha, a quick question for you. Before the Black arts movement, there was said to be little to no Black presence in San Francisco theater. During the Black arts movement, Black people had to learn how to produce a play, had to learn everything about putting on a play. They had little money and had to do everything themselves. They trained each other. They networked. They gained experience in working in the theater. When the Black arts movement was over, many Black theater people were trained and experienced work enough to work in other San Francisco theaters as well. Can you please talk about your understanding of this building of the San Francisco Black theater and that process?
Well, actually, Marvin touched on it because he mentioned Mr. Murphy. But there was Burial Clay, and there was John Doyle, J.H. Doyle, who was also at San Francisco State. Danny Glover was also around at that time, and Rhonda White Warner, who was one of the few Black people who was on the Arts Commission, set up and hooked us up with neighborhood arts. And then Mel Stewart, who was at that time on television on a series called Scarecrow and Mrs. King, a weekly series, was our instructor for some of our first improvisation workshops, which was held at the UC Extension, it was called, which was on the corner of Octavia and Haight Street. Right now, that's part of condominiums, I think, and some other stuff now, high-end stuff, but all that other stuff. And there was also a young man in there by the name of Keith Greer, Keith St. Clair. Keith St. Clair was one of the few white people in the mix, who later on went on to go and work with ACT and also helped get us costumes and stuff. But Danny Duncan, who was young and a young writer who I met when at age 10, we lived around the corner from each other, and I met his cousin, Patsy Kane, who is passed on, and Danny Duncan, Patsy Kane, Pamela, who at that time was Jenkins, but we buried her recently. Not buried her, it was a memorial service because they still have her body. Sweedon and Walter Reen Ross formed what at that time was called the Young Troopers, okay? But Burial Clay and those people was our kind of mentors because they were a little bit older. That's how I knew about Marvin. And then the community center, which was called the Western Addition Community Center, which we still finally call it that, y'all. I don't care, y'all can change names all you want to. You hear me? It has too much history. We still call it the Western Addition Community Theater. And the Burial Clay Theater was named that when Burial got killed in a car accident. Before that, and I meant to bring with me a production that was played at that theater when it was called the Western Addition Community Theater, and another playbill when it says the Burial Clay Theater. Okay, so Danny Duncan lives across the street from there as we speak and is sick, and that's another reason I am so passionate about getting this story told. Not just today, y'all, not with just this exhibition, but we need a documentary, we need this inventory and cataloged and placed out so this story can be told, because through all of those people, Rhonda White Warner, but for Rhonda, I wouldn't have got to teach at the Black Panther School, teaching workshops there. I knew, Emory and I went to school together, but through that, I met Erica Huggins and got to hang out with Eldridge Cleaver and Kathleen Cleaver and know these people as real people and not just militants, as was being called this. But through that, during that time, Dr. Angelou came through, Zach Thompson was another person who is another name who needs to be told in this story, who's passed on. But for Zach, I wouldn't have met Dr. Angelou. And so I'm sure we auditioned for Blacks, Blues, Blacks. But I was fortunate enough, along with Danny Duncan, to become primarily her co-stars. But for having to do an interview about that piece, I was forced to review all 10 episodes, and to my surprise, I was in a whole bunch of them. So, but Dr. Angelou was kind of, I mean, we were already on the pinnacle, Black and I'm Proud, and Change and I'm, and even though in that series, my name was Blondell Breed, shortly after that, I became Mwanza Furaha, the beginning of October, and then I married Furaha, which my name means now, the beginning of joy and happiness. So, but we networked, we interacted with one another, and I was saying this earlier, there wasn't anything about beefing and not working with each other. I was telling them about when John Doyle did Monk and Bud, which is a play about Thelonious Monk and his relationship with Bud Plow. I was privileged enough and got cast to play Nellie Monk. And the auditions were held at the Lorraine Hansberry Theater, which was on Sutter Street, right off of the corner of Mason, but the play was mounted and performed at Egypt Theater on Foothill in Oakland with Minnie Gibson. So this young lady over here who's saying that's right, that's Michelle Lachaud. And Michelle not only has been an actress and a singer and stuff, but she also worked tech, as I did. She was our stage manager. And there's some other people who I invited who I'm so happy is in the room. Therese came all the way from Carlsbad, California, y'all, to be here today for this. So I know my 3 minutes is up. And again, this is just the beginning of this, y'all.
Yes.
He opened Pandora's box.
Amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Rhodessa Jones, a recent Q Fellow and Frank H.T. Rhodes Chair at Cornell University, has also held visiting professorships at Dartmouth, Hamilton College, and the University of Wisconsin. An honorary doctorate recipient from California College of the Arts, Dr. Jones is celebrated with awards including the San Francisco Bay Guardians Lifetime Achievement Award and the Otto Rene Castillo Award for political theater. Her acclaimed solo plays such as The Legend of Lily Overstreet and Big Gut Girls, Hard-Headed Women are landmarks in American theater. Central to the Medea Project Theater for Incarcerated Women for 36 years, Dr. Jones is honored with the 2023-24 Legacy Artist Award from Youth Speaks. Give some love for Dr. Jones.
Wow.
Yes.
I forget, you know. Hello, I am Rhodessa Jones, and as I hear these wonderful stories, I kind of came in through the bathroom window. I was a dancer first, but before that, I was my grandmother's granddaughter, and my grandmother raised us by teaching us how to stand up and tell a story. And I was dancing in San Francisco with a white company, Tumbleweed, and all of the women in the company, they were strippers. They danced nude for money. This is how they paid the rent, right? So I thought, I could do that. And on top of that, my daughter had just won a full scholarship to Marin Academy in San Rafael. But her father skipped out on us, you know. He said he promised all these things and he was gone. And we did not have the basic essential stuff. And all of a sudden I thought, I gotta make some money. I gotta make some money fast. So I went to North Beach and they told me point blank, we don't hire black girls here. And I was like, boom, better write that down. Went back to the Tenderloin, to something called Fantasies in the Flesh. And it was run by these fabulous lesbians. And they said, girl, come on in now. And all of a sudden, I'm like there with my high heels and my Donna Summer wig. And they're saying, oh, honey, don't wear any of that. You look so much more dignified without that. I said, I'm about to get buck naked, y'all. This ain't about no dignity down here. And I started working at Fantasies in the Flesh. And the title, The Legend of Lily Overstreet, had to do with the fact that all of a sudden I'm dealing with being black, being female, being fabulously fine. I was a dancer, right? Yeah. And the men would come in. Oh, I love men, but a lot of them need to be taken out back and taught a few things. They didn't know what to say to a naked woman. I thought, what has this got to do with life? Why is sex and race, why do they make such interesting bedfellows? You know, and I would start writing things down. And the gentleman who wrote Shogun, who was that writer? James Clavell was a friend of the man who owned the club downtown where I was working. I'm reading this book at night, and I'd go on stage and put the book down, and the owner would say, which one of you bitches are reading this book? And I'd say, I am. Everybody's like, oh shit, a black girl who can talk and read? And James Clavell said, I wrote it, you want my autograph? And he's leering at me. I said, no, darling, I got your book. And then the rumor started that I was a cop because I was smart. I was like on the point. And all of a sudden, the place, one night, one girl was on stage. I was a peep show dancer, if I missed that. A peep show dancer is a little different than a stripper. a peep show dancer comes on with her stuff, and she shows her body and dances around. The stage is turning. And the next part of the job is that she sits naked behind a glass, and men put $1 in. The curtain opens, and I realized that most men had no idea what to say to a naked woman. They had no idea. At any rate, this one night, this young lady is lying on the stage, giving up her goods. You know, by the way, Richard Pryor came in there when I was working there. Most Allison came in there while I was working there. And this lady is lying on stage, and a mouse runs across her body. And we all freak out, you know, and the establishment said, oh, come on, you bitches have got to clean this place up. And the women start running around like, oh, we got to, I said, hold on now. I said, secretaries don't clean their office. And they're saying, she's a cop. I told you she's a cop. And the women are like, we don't. And, you know, I do work now with incarcerated women. I work in jails around the world. And I still get this energy from women where if one of the deputies say something, they'll jump to it. I said, no, y'all. This is their job. You're held here. It's their job to keep this place clean. It's their job to feed you. Don't buy the hype. You know, and so my piece, The Legend of Lily Overstreet, all the sisters, they came in and said, girl, you was buck naked on that stage. And they said, how you feel being a black woman? I said, I'm fabulous being a black woman. If white girls can do it, honey, I can rock this. And I made a lot of money. And the show, Ed Bullins, Ed Mock, the choreographer, Ed Mock saw my flyer and he said, little sister, girl, be all that you can be. He said, work this. And I opened this show on Noe Street, and it was just all gay boys. I said, all right. The gay boys like, you go, Miss One, work it. And the people like, what the hell's going on here? It's a show about a naked woman, all the gay boys in their leather, they're standing outside waiting to go in. And that show took me, you know, I had to stop doing it. I said, y'all don't pay me enough money. I'm 75 now, but I started doing it at 30. I said, you don't pay enough money for me to get naked anymore, y'all. But I did make a lot of money. I'll stop there for now. But here I am, and thank you all for having me. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Amazing. Awesome, yes. And our last panelist is definitely not least, Thomas Robert Simpson, who's an actor, director, producer, and writer, and is the founder and artistic director of the Afro Solo Theater Company. Yeah. Since 1994, yes, that's amazing. Since 1994, he has concentrated on presenting African American and African diasporan art and culture through solo performances and the visual and literary arts. In 1994, Afro Solo Theater Company launched the award-winning and critically acclaimed Afro Solo Arts Festival, the longest-running annual Black solo performance event in the country. Yes, give some love for Thomas. Yes, so for a question for you, Mr. Simpson, 20 years after the Black arts movement, you founded Afro Solo. You created a space for the Black voice, for the solo Black artist. Is Afro Solo a legacy of the Black arts movement? And why solo work?
Thank you very, very much. And I would like to start off by saying a couple of things. First, thank you all for being here on this wonderful, wonderful Sunday afternoon to share it with us. And the next thing is, how in the world can I follow this woman?
We've known each other a long time, darling.
Being the youngest of the panelists, not the moderator, I had a lot of mentors, and I would watch them They may not have known I was watching them or learning from them, but I was. I remember your play Marvin X at the Bureau Clay. You probably had several there, but there was one in particular that, let me watch this man. And I did, and Mwanza hired me to do a tour of an event up in Nevada. And Rhodessa has been almost my office mate and supporter and mentor since I got here. I arrived in San Francisco in '84, and my goal was to be here for 1 year and then move to LA or New York. But being here, there's something about San Francisco that kind of like gets on you. And you begin to fall in love with the city and the people, and that's what happened to me. In terms of the arts, I was in theater at the time, and as was read, a number of plays that was written about the Black experience was not necessarily written by us. I think I was in one play that was an exception, and that was a play that Donald Lacey wrote about the killings of young Black boys and men in Atlanta. He wrote a play about that, and I was in that play. But a number of plays and projects that I was in were directed primarily by, white people. And in being in some of those plays, I began to think, my God, if I were writing this, I don't think I would write it like that. I thought, well, what you gonna do? I started taking a solo performance class with the Cultural Odyssey. It was directed by a gentleman who passed away a few years ago, Rhodessa Jones. During that class, I thought, I can do this. I worked on a piece. I had a birthday party coming up, and I thought, well, I'll just invite some of my friends to perform, and we'll raise some money, and then I'll be a great actor and won't have to worry about anything after that. It was a great party. It was so good, the next year they asked, what are you going to do? So we had another performance party. That was really good. The next year, another performance party. And it was at this time I thought, this might make a really nice annual event. So Afro Solo Arts Festival was born. The idea was to provide a space for Black artists to give voice to our experience through theater, dance, music, spoken word, literary arts, the visual arts. Fortunately, as a result of the mentorship of some of the people here, the support of a number of people in the audience, and another mentor of mine, Gloria, Weinstock, who happens to be in the audience, we've been around for a number of years. Fortunately also, we have a couple of people in the audience who have participated in Afro Solo. I don't know if they want me to call their names, I would, but people sometimes don't like that. But I've worked with people from the age primarily 13, 14, up until about 84. We are continuing the process and the project of giving voice to our experience in a genuine way. And that makes me feel very, very good, being someone who has followed people such as the people that we have on stage. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is, we're going to open up the questions for the entire panel. And we're really interested in knowing, do you see the Black arts movement in today's San Francisco theater, both Black theater and otherwise, and where are the legacies continuing in the work that we see on our stages in the Bay Area today? Or not?
I'll kick it off. Being in San Francisco, it's been said that, you might have to throw several rocks to hit a Black person because we're not here in the way that we used to be. And I think that in some ways, all of the work that went on and the growth and development of the Black arts movement, I'm not sure there's as much here now as there was back then, which is another reason that I'm very excited that we are here, and that I know Cultural Odyssey is here, Lorraine Hansberry is here, and I do want to shout out to, I'm having a moment. Lorraine Hansberry, the leaders. No. Quentin Easter and Stanley. I want to shout out to them as my memory begins to fade, but they were very, very important to me also. So there are some Black theaters happening here. I don't know if there are any specific companies other than mine, maybe Lorraine Hansberry, yours, but there are other organizations that produce plays. I know that Peter was in one. Oops, I said I wasn't going to mention your name. Peter Fitzsimmons was in one recently. So it is happening, but I'm not sure it's happening on the same level, which is one reason I hope that all of us will continue to support us when we are showcasing work. Jeffrey Greer has a theater company that's doing some very good work also. And there are probably a lot of others, like Idris Cooper, Monfauché is doing some good work, so a lot of good works, but we don't have our quote-unquote ACT yet. And maybe that's something we do want, or maybe that's something that will come in the future. Does that give you a short answer?
Yes, that was great. Anyone else from the panel want to speak to that?
I would like to say, as the brother just said, Jeffrey Greer took over my recovery theater, and he's handling that. Myself, I went a little further than drug recovery, so I wrote a book. It's in the back, How to Recover from White Supremacy. Because I remember when I was on drugs and we go to these programs for recovery, and you'd be there, and you might have at least if you want to pass out, and the white people throw it on the ground. Now we just sit there talking about recovery, and you still fucked up. You understand? So I saw that we got to go past drugs and get to the real drug, white supremacy. One of my other students she has BAM on Broadway in Oakland, Ayo Deli in Jenga. So Ayo's carrying on the work that we started. Jeffrey is carrying on the work, and there's others all around. I'll just stop right there.
Great.
My thing with it is, I know there are a few companies around, but it seems like we have lost sight of the importance of promotions. It's like I would go to a show, even after I moved to Marin. I'd go to Concord or wherever somebody Black was doing something, San Jose, wherever we're doing something. But we need to let people know. I hear about things after they're done. I live in West Marin, y'all. You gotta make an effort to let us people know. And I have a really good address book. And I thank God I see somebody who worked here today, okay? So, and most of the people I know live on a calendar. So you can't wait till the last minute to let people know about stuff. If we could do something, I wanna see theater companies like it used to be with the Lorraine Hansberry Theater, where there were seasons. As I have on some display out there in the display cabinet, some things that came from the Lorraine Hansberry Theater, from when Michael Lange was still alive and working with Winston Young and was doing project which we used to call the Old Alice Art Center, which is now the Mungulago Theater. And which I can't say, y'all, I'm sorry. I need to be looking at it to pronounce it correctly, so I apologize for that. But again, it's still, Alice Art Center for me, because that's so long ago. And Black Reps Building is there, OET. But when those companies was up and running, they would have seasons, and we would do shows in the summer months. And then in the winter months, there would be a season, there would be plays, and this would be yearly done annually, that we would know what was going to be going on. And actors would already be on call as to if you didn't have a spot, like I did in Gethsemane Park for the next year, then you knew that you was wanted to show up because they were interested in having you in that production. That's what I want to see us get back to. That's what I want to see us do. And I don't care where the theater is, okay? If it's in Oakland, if it's in San Francisco, if it's in Palo Alto, if it's in Pinole, you know, let's try to network, which we used to do, to make this thing happen, y'all, and we could have this movement where we really can have Black theater.
And I would just like to add, though, that Shades of Kamala, we're not going back. You know, and I feel like, because I work in prisons around the world, Black theater, it permeates everything.
Absolutely.
I say to people, I want you to write a poem. Everybody will say, you mean a rap? I said, if you can convince me with a rap, you go for it. And some people would come with a rap and with movement. I remember teaching at Woodrow Wilson High School in San Francisco, and this one kid said, I want to be like Michael Jackson. And all the kids are like, yeah, and I'm thinking, okay, what does he mean by be like Michael Jackson? But he would move, and he would strut, and he could set the audience on fire. So I feel like that's the stuff that we have anyway. That's what we have brought to the mix. You know, if you can't set the room on fire, bye. Because Joe Blow, the person you got scared of on the street, you get him sober, he's going to set it on fire. I feel like that is one of the things that we must claim for ourselves. Yeah, it's the good old days. I think a lot about Ed Bullins, who I worked with a lot back in the day. But I even watched Ed grow and be different about the work. But I just want to add that to it as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. And we would love to know, what are you all working on now, and what motivates you to continue creating for the theater, talking about the theater, doing work in the theater today?
I'll go real quickly. I teach a couple of classes. One is around seniors. And what Rhodessa was sort of saying is that we all have wonderful stories. It's a matter of having someone plant the seed and allow it to grow. I've worked with men who've spent time in jail and prison, Black women in the Bayview, and just I see stories coming from these writings that is often set to movement, or just literary pieces about one's life. I have another person in the audience, as part of her writing, she shocked me one day when she talked about being a sharecropper. I was like, I've heard history of sharecroppers, but I never met anyone who did it, which was phenomenal. So there are just some wonderful stories that are out there that I want to cultivate and develop and put on stage.
I'd like to say, as far as what I'm doing now or what I'm been proposed to do, and this comes from a brother in Philly who says, he tells the people in Philly, you got to see what Marvin is saying and what he's saying. So now I've been got the project of saying what I'm saying. Since some people want to give you things to do, and so I say, okay, I'm gonna check that out and see what I can do for the brother that wants me to talk about what I'm saying, so he can get that out. One thing I've said, we got some ungrateful bastard kids. Now I'm dealing with several brothers who are dealing with their children. some of the brothers are in here. They've been talked about in here already, but they have problems with understanding what their parents are doing. For example, we're doing something. Now, my thing is, okay, what are my children gonna say to them? When they say mama ain't doing something right, or she's doing something foul, or daddy too. So what are you doing? What are you gonna do that I'm doing right that you can take off on? So that's one Marvin says. But what I wanted to also let you understand that this whole concept of black theater, as I said earlier, it was the mother of the black movement. Larry Neal says it was the of the black movement, and I say no, it was the mother. Because as I said earlier, the brothers got their understanding of black consciousness, and don't worry about whether they sent it out, because the first thing they had to do was get it from themselves, get it in their mind what they were doing. And as I said, they made progress and made revolution. And so my point here, are we still on that path?
I am.
Are we still on that path?
Oh, yeah. I am.
I am.
I am.
So, you know, you can say that bitch, hoe, and motherfucker talk that shit in rap, but what about saying some bitch, hoe, motherfucker revolution? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm about. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go next. What I'm doing now and what I've been about since 2009, I live in an area where I am, people might call it less than 1% of the population. In the whole of Marin County, we're less than 6% of the population. So my goal has been about educating those people about the contributions that we African Americans have given to not only America, but to the world, and letting them know exactly who we have been as a race of people, the type of things. It's like when I came full circle again with Carolyn Ransom Scott, okay, and she was doing those bookmarker series about black inventors, okay. I'm just thrilled about that because I live where, and I've said Dr. Maya Angelou, and people say, I don't think I know who that is. So if they don't know who she is, they don't know who John Hendricks is. They don't know who Langston Hughes is, and all of these. So my job has been, and my mission has been about educating and letting people know, but educating in informative, educational, and entertaining. Because I learned that when you want to feed somebody a bit of pill, the best way to do it is with a little honey and a little sugar. And music always makes people sit up and pay attention and listen. And so those stories that are hard to swallow, I've been able to teach. I did Juneteenth in West Marin for the first time, just before it became a national holiday out in West Marin. And you'd be surprised how many people who didn't know what Juneteenth was. I'm from Texas, I knew. So these are the things I want us. I know Marvin has been about this and educated, and our revolution about learning and telling our story, because I must say this, because I truly mean this. If we don't tell our own story, black people, it's not gonna get told. Because if they were gonna tell it, they would have told it already.
Thank you.
Well, the work that I'm doing now, I'm working largely with incarcerated women, with homeless women, with women that have been traumatized, women living with HIV. And what me and my company, we want to again inform women about what's out there right now. We just did a piece in June entitled "Life on the Swerve," and it looked at how the discrepancies in medical care with the bodies of black women, you know. And now we are about to move into the next iteration, which is looking at HIV and the trauma in the lives of black women. And I agree that these stories must be told. When I taught in Africa a lot just before the pandemic. And I remember arriving in Johannesburg and telling the crew at the prison, again, these young people were so respectful. I was Professor Jones. I was Dr. Jones. That was, you know, and it was just such an interesting space. And I said, well, one of the first homework assignments is that I want you to write a letter home. I want you to write a letter to your family, to your children, blah, blah, blah. And one young woman said, you want us to write letters like Papa Mandela? And it was like, oh my God, that they all knew, and they all turned that, yeah, you know. And back to what our children don't know. And I fear so much with this whole election and this whole threat of shutting down education. They already don't want the real stories of our struggles in jail, in schools. So my work, and I want to look at theater as medicine.
It is.
Because theater
It is.
theater saved my life,
Hello.
you know. Theater gave me a place to be seen and to speak out on the things that matter to me. So that's where I am right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, yes.
My sister gave me a praise.
So we have a few moments to turn to the audience. If there are any questions from the audience, yes, we'll start. We have a microphone coming, and we can start right here in the front row. Or second row, yes, thank you.
That's Gloria.
Phil.
Oh, she knows how to project.
I am so happy to see all of you up there, closer to my mouth. I am so happy to see you and to be here. I started Theater with Grassroots Experience Theater Company in '71. And we opened the Western Addition Cultural Center.
I know, I was there.
It was in shambles. We got Burial to go downtown and pitch for us. And Ray Taliaferro picked up the banner and started pushing for us. We went in there and cleaned that place up, and we turned it into a culture center. And we had theater, we had dance, we had workshops, we had Dolores Caillou. Do you remember that name?
Miss Caillou.
She had a dance workshop there. We had everybody in the Bay Area black theater working in that building. Talking about the children, I started teaching college in '77. And what I taught in 1980, I couldn't teach in 1999. Progress. I taught preschool in the early '70s, and when they came out with Velcro, I knew we were doomed. Seriously, Velcro, zipping, buttoning, learning to tie your shoe. Those are all pre-reading skills. In the 2000s, my students couldn't fill out envelopes. They couldn't tell time by a regular clock. They couldn't tell you what the concept of a sentence was. They knew what the words were, but they couldn't tell you what it meant. their brains are, I'm going to get, please, stop me. But,
Tell us who you are.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm Gloria Weinstock.
Thank you. I know, but they
I
didn't
am
know.
so full of joy in seeing you and being here and talking about what we did in the 70s. Theater we were there for different reasons. We were there for the love of theater.
Yes. Yes.
The kids today want to go to Hollywood.
Yep.
They want to be paid. We didn't think about being paid. We wanted to do the art. We brought Ed Bullins out, Ayamo. We brought,
Yes.
I mean, what's his name? Leroy Jones.
Amiri Baraka.
Yes, we brought him out. This is great. Ishmael Reed. Oh, we were doing
yes.
all of those plays, and guess what? The brothers were doing everything they could to support and produce those plays. They sold a little,
Yes, that's easy. That's
and
easy.
I don't know what else, but they would go down on Market and Powell and do scenes from the plays we were doing. That's how they advertised, because we didn't have the money. We didn't have the money. So they took it to the streets. And one name you didn't mention, Vern Henderson.
Yes.
Vern Henderson brought me into Grassroots when they were doing a play called Electronic Nigger.
Yes. Yes.
Do you remember that? I mean, that was
It's Ed Bullins.
Ed Bull, Electronic Nigger. So
Oh,
the kids
he's
are very,
here, Keith.
where's Keith?
Keith Greer. Oh, hey, there he is. He came.
Raise your hand, Keith. Yeah, you remember, you know. So, and what about you?
Like.
What about you? I'm looking at faces we brought. I remember when he was this big, walking around with
Robert.
eyes like this, because he was working with Vern Henderson and Grassroots Experience Theater Company. Yeah, our sisters are pregnant. We were rehearsing in apartments, in our living rooms. We were rehearsing everywhere we could. We were just doing theater for the love of theater. Not to get paid, not to be famous, not to go to Hollywood, not to be seen, but to give, to tell the story. The love of telling the story. And I have to wrap it up, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm a retired college professor and actor, so I can go on forever. I got more history.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Gloria. Panel, if I may say a few words. My name is Peter Fitzsimmons. I grew up in San Francisco. I act with all y'all. Back in the day, Vern Henderson, gangsters of the theater.
Yes.
And we had a fun time. There's others, John Henry Doyle. You know, I can name a few other folks. But what I want to say is we're about the words. We're about the writings. That's what propels us. Right, Thomas? We have to write it down so that we could emote, so that we could project, so that we could examine what it is we want to talk about. So right now I'm working with Reg Clay, who wrote a play a year and a half ago that I was in called Four Black Men in Paris, about Ed Bullins and a few other folks. And now he's written a play called Judicial Process. We're going to put it up next week at Potrero Hill for 2 days. 2 days. And we're talking about the ICE thugs that, well, I won't spoil it for you, but come on down. Hi, Ken. So I just want to say thank you, panel, for keeping this San Francisco Black Theater movement conversation alive.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Miss Billy Cooper. I've been in San Francisco around 45 years, and y'all mentioned HIV. I'm a transgendered woman, long-term survivor living with HIV. But I just want to say, San Francisco is not welcoming to black theater. San Francisco has never been welcoming, in my opinion, this is my opinion, has never been welcoming to black theater, or pretty much, I would say, it's black anything. And I'm sad. You know, I went to all these meetings for black reparations. All these talks and meetings and everything. Ain't nothing happened. The mayor and the board of supervisors, the mayor, the ex-mayor, London Bree, and the board of supervisors scratched it off the chalkboard. They said, no, we're not going to do it. They funded all that money over 2 years to do the study and to find out about it and to document it. But at the end of the day, they said it was a no-go. I'm just so upset. We used to go to the Lorraine Hansberry Theater. I think it was on Sutter Street.
Yes.
Oh my God, I loved going there. And it just dwindled out of sight. It seemed like overnight. I know it wasn't overnight, but overnight it seemed like it just stopped happening. And that was a sad earmark here in San Francisco. And I want to say something else. When this library next door, the old library when they were building this one for the new library, how come the black, I can't do it by myself. I spoke to the mayor at the time, and I spoke to other people in San Francisco. How come that's not the San Francisco Black History Museum? How come that's not our museum? We have the smallest museum in San Francisco, the Diaspora Museum at 3rd and Mission. Everybody else getting all these new museums built. Where's our black history? You know, I'm from the Tenderloin, 40 years in the Tenderloin. You know, I got a few murals and things up because the white people want to shut me up. So they gave me a few murals. But it's like, it's sad, but I'm 66. I just turned 66. As I age, and I'm aging, everybody in this room is aging hopefully gracefully too. But does anyone think about that what's happening now might not be here anymore? You know, because just like other people expunged on, the rappers want to rap and make money, and they want to go to Hollywood and go to Atlanta and do all that. You know, we should have, and there should be a very vibrant black theater movement. You know, the black theater movement we have now is good, but it should be more. Y'all know what I'm saying. Y'all know exactly what I'm saying.
Yes.
And if we don't do it, all of us are sitting in this room, and from what I know about meetings and summits and get-togethers and conferences, soon as most of us cross that threshold to get out this room, it's a forgotten subject. That's it. We have to keep the conversation going. I'm gonna make a commitment to everybody in this, I'm gonna make a challenge to everyone in this room. If y'all wanna do something like y'all say y'all wanna do it and get it moving, it's time right now. It's time right now. Y'all know who's in office now? You know, why haven't all these powerful black people given more money to the black theater movement?
That's right. Thank you so much.
Let me.
We have a comment from Marvin. Sorry, we have a comment from Marvin X, one of our panelists, and then we'll go to Daryl.
Now we saw earlier last month we saw a film here on black theater. It was produced about 1978.
Yeah.
But it showed black theater basically in Harlem and New York and Philly and East Coast, but East Coast, and then they did the South. I think they mentioned the South also. But when they gave all this money to black theater, then what happened? They cut it off. So when they cut it off, in a sense, that was the end of black theater. A lot of people from New York came out here. Even Ed Bullins came back out here. So, Danny Glover, whatever. So, my point is, you can't have a movement that's funded by somebody else. Because when they want to cut your ass off, they will cut your ass off. So you got to have your own finance. Think about Marcus Garvey and what he did. You got to have your own movement with your own finance. And then you can't cut you off. Especially you say some shit that they don't like, then your ass is gone. So you got to have your own finance to be successful.
Yes, we have, thank you so much. We have a question here in the in blue, and then we have one.
We just start spending money on eyelashes and fake hair. We could have a whole lot of money.
We'll start here, and then we'll go to the back, and then we'll come up to the front.
Okay, sorry. It's not exactly a question, but I wrote it down so I wouldn't ramble. Anyway, my name is Daryl V. Jones, and I'm a local actor and director. And I'm not initially from the Bay Area, but I first want to thank you all, those of you who are, for the amazing work that you have done throughout the years. It's really quite an accomplishment. I grew up on the East Coast and being part of that integration experience, and didn't know a whole lot about black theater when I actually went into it, but I fortunately, the first African-American theater company that I worked for was called ACTCO, the African Continuum Theater Company in DC, Washington, DC. And I also then worked at Arena Stage, where I met Oyamo, and worked with him for a couple of years, and then we worked together at the University of Michigan. We taught together. It was there that, and I'm mentioning this name because she's very important for the whole black theater movement, Glenda Dickerson became my mentor. We were teaching together at the University of Michigan, and I learned more about black theater, about being black from her than I had learned my entire life. I miss her to this day. I want to also touch on something that was said about, there's a lot of students that we have raised here in the black theater community, and they are doing amazing work all over the country. Reggie White was one of my students at Cal State East Bay, who is now the associate artistic producer at Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. Adrian Mitchell was a local actor who has gone, a lot of them have gone on to do amazing stuff in New York. She was originally in Fat Ham. Of course, there's Coleman Domingo. The list goes on and on. I also want to thank Amiri Baraka. I think he needs to be mentioned, and his Black Arts Repertory Theater that he started in Harlem in New York, and of course, James Baldwin. And I spoke to this is it. I do want to say that the Lorraine Hansberry Theater, it's still, Margot is keeping it alive. It went from Stanley and Quentin to Aldo for a year, and then me for 2 years, and now on to Margot, and it's still alive. So please, they are still producing, and attend when you can. Lastly, I will say, I spoke to a young African-American actor yesterday. I was so bummed out by the election. I wanted to pack it up and just move someplace else. And I'm still thinking about that. But I spoke to a young man, 35 years old, and he was still full of hope, still ready to get on the battlefield and fight. And that encouraged me to know that the young people are not giving up. And so I will sit back and be the wise judge and advise them. But I don't know I'm going to be fighting out there with it, but I'll advise them. Thank you. And thank you all.
Yes. Thank you.
She's coming.
She's gonna come down. Yeah.
You're next.
You're next, yes.
Good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much for all that you've done and all you continue to do. My name is Jarrell Phillips.
Yeah, could you speak into...
Thank you for all that you've done
Thank
and
you.
continue to do. I'm just here to learn, and I'm very grateful. My uncle is actually Kheven LaGrone, and I went to Wajumbe when I was a kid. Wajumbe was created by Professor Caillou. And Ms. Weinstock, you said a lot. I work with kids around the city. I teach capoeira. I first started learning capoeira at Wajumbe. I have the same teacher now. And I've been learning a lot more about Professor Caillou. Recently, I'm actually working on maybe doing a documentary about her work. But as I'm learning more about the Black Arts Movement. My uncle will talk at me and talk to me for hours. We talk. And so I'm curious to hear more about Wajumbe's role in any of it. I was reading Professor Caillou's a summary about her recently, and it said that Wajumbe was often referred to as the vanguard of the Black Arts Movement on the West Coast. And I didn't know Professor Caillou. I knew her daughter, Auntie Omatade. But when Professor Caillou walked into the room, everybody shut up. And so that's all I remember of Professor Caillou, was it was this lady, when she came in, everybody stopped. But I would just love to hear anybody else's input on that, and I also look forward to hearing more from you all. Thank you.
Yes, does anyone on the panel want to speak to his question around Dr. Caillou? Professor? Yeah. He had a question about Professor Caillou and wondering if that is, if you want to speak to her or, no. Yeah, come on down. Yes. Great.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Ken Johnson. I'm a native San Franciscan. I ran with a lot of the people. I knew Caillou and Vern Henderson. I was my partner. I was a theater manager there at the Real Clay Theater for a minute. But we have the Fillmore Heritage Center.
The Black Arts Movement.
And this is a partner of mine. Everybody. Anyway, we have the Fillmore Heritage Center that's vacant, that we need to snatch, and you can have plays there and all that. People, we need to rise up, because that's the only, the last place the Fillmore, the black community has to really develop. That's all we got. And then if we lose that, what the kids gonna do? We can't train the kids. We can't show them anything. We get that building back, at least we could put our chests out a little bit. The kids could put their chests out, because that'll be something we have. They took everything from the Fillmore, from the black people. They took it all. And we ain't got nothing. We need to snatch that Fillmore Heritage Center. We need to and start doing things in there. You can have plays there. It's got a small theater in there. It's really a wonderful building. It's a beautiful building, and it's vacant. It's not being used. It's on Fillmore and Eddie. Yes, that building. That building was built for the black community, to help revitalize the black community, but they never gave the black community the opportunity to run the building. They always had different organizations in there. And when they did give the young brothers an opportunity, they ran it, the hip hop, and they succeeded. They was winning in there still. And until somebody from Oakland came over there and shot somebody, and then they closed the building down. But then they closed City Hall down when the mayor got shot and other people. So we need to focus in and not just, all this talk is good about the past, but we need to bring the past forward and have a place for young people to work.
Thank you so much.
We need to do something.
So thank you all so much. Thank you, everyone, for your questions and your thoughts. So is there one? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, sorry, there's one. Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sydney. I'm a friend of the curator. My question is for Dr. Mwanza in the middle. In your bio, it said that you worked with Carmen McRae.
Yes.
Today is the anniversary of her passing. She died in 1985 on November the 10th. Can you speak about that must have been quite an experience to work with her. Can you speak on that?
And what's interesting about working with her was that, and I have the script with me, of all things. Danny Duncan was trying to mount blackbirds. And I don't know how we met Miss McCrae, but all of a sudden she was in the backers audition, which was held at a place called Portcullis on Brennan Street, down between 4th and 3rd in San Francisco. And I had scenes with her in this play and became friends with her. She was working at the Great American Music Hall at the time. So I would go to her place, we would go over our scene, do other stuff, then I would go with her to the Great American Music Hall, and I would go on the mezzanine floor and I would look down at her holding court. And I scat the way I do today because of Miss McCrae.
Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you, audience, for your questions, your thoughts. I would love to have a moment if anyone on the panel would like to say any closing remarks as we begin to transition. Yes.
I would just like to say, as we were talking about things not being as good as they could be, I would like to say that after a number of studies that were put on the shelf, I guess she's still mayor right now, Mayor Breed, and our supervisor did taking money from the police department and sheriff department is not the correct way to say it, but they reused some of that money that she gave to the black community. And Afro Solo was a recipient of some of those funds, and a lot of really good things happened with some of that money. Now, some of you may know there are controversies. There's always controversies about black people and money. But I would like to say that she did step out and give lots of money to the black community that we're not sure what's going to happen at this point, but we give praise where we can.
I want to just close out with what happened at the Black Arts West Theater, which was in that poster where it says American. That was our theater. That was the old theater house, and we took it and made it the Black Arts Theater. One thing we learned was working with the musicians. We haven't talked hardly any about what we did with the musicians and what the musicians taught us. And one thing they taught us was to get rid of that what do you call it, that stage. There's no stagey in black drama. Right. There is no stage. The theater, the musicians taught us to come through that audience. That's right. Come through the audience. Not only did they come through the audience, they went outside on Fillmore Street and played with the cars. That's what they taught us. Now, I want to say one more thing. We did a play at my Black Educational Theater, which was on O'Farrell, between Fillmore and Webster. It was in a Greek church, a beautiful Greek church that we had to clean the shit out and all that from the homeless and all that kind of stuff. So we, in that same atmosphere of black, let me say it like this, especially on the East Coast, they started talking about doing what I'm just saying with the black arts, with the black theater. Barbara Ann Tier was one that we was there. I was there. I was at New Lafayette, but she promoted it best. But in my play, Resurrection of the Dead, and this close out with the mother, as black art as the mother. We did a so-called play, as you call it, a play, but it wasn't a play. Because, why wasn't it a play? Because we did ceremonies. And people, as you heard people say, they took names and changed their names. In the ceremony was a name-giving ceremony. And I want to tell you today that these same people got names that they got from that so-called play. And so this is why it was the mother. I'm gonna end up with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other word?
My last words is this, and I'm happy to see Gloria and Keith and Robert Fisher and all these people that I spoke to about this topic and who I have been talking to for the last 6 years. I want y'all to know I have a documentary filmmaker in my back pocket that I've spoke to about this. And I thank God now through this, I now have Rhodessa's information. I always have Marvin's, but I've updated everything. Kevin, and you guys will be hearing from me about this project. We are not gonna let this die, and the thing is to bring Black theater companies, I don't care where they are, so we can promote each other, support each other, and do these plays like Marvin has written. I have stuff by people who have passed on. John Doyle, we have some stuff that John wrote. I have some stuff by Jim Lee, who's passed on. Yes, Jim Lee, he knows Jim Lee, about projects who Black writers, that we have material that we could do, and we can support each other. I know about the Heritage Center. I went to meetings there trying to make that happen. But then there is Black Rep is a building that's still over there sitting with nothing going on in it. Yes, and I want to see the Burial Clay Theater come back to fruition because it was brought about just for this so that we could do our projects.
Let's say it another way, sister. Let's have a revolution of Black theater in San Francisco. Let's have a revolution of Black theater in San Francisco.
Let's have a revolution
And let's
of Black theater.
Let's start. We came here today, but there's so much information that hasn't been said that we need 2 or 3 weeks to talk about this and to see where we at and see where we're going. So we need to let's do with it. Let's get busy and stop talking about what's his name, Trump. Man, he's just a white man being white. So leave that white man alone. Let that white man be white.
Not cross my lips. He is not
So
cross my lips.
let's do something.
All right.
All right.
We have Ms. Dr. Jones.
This has been great. I'm glad that we all got together. This came to me one night I was lying in bed 1,000 years ago, but politics don't work. Religion is a bit too eclectic, but art could be that parachute that catches us all. So thank you for being here. Thank you.
Amazing. Let's give our panelists another round of applause.
I just want to say, y'all, people was asking where we gonna get money from. Sisters, and all of us who have people who spending all this money on hair and eyelashes. Okay, y'all, we can have a lot of money.
No, let me say it another way, sister. Let's have reparations for your own self. Give yourself some reparations.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes, we're going to turn the program back over to our curator, Kheven LaGrone.
I want to close by thanking everybody for coming. The participants, our conversations were very inspirational, and I really appreciate them. And I thank you guys for coming and with your participation and everything. You really made this a wonderful event. I did have one more question, though. Dr. Mitchell, what did, as a scholar and artist and a creative person, what was your experience today?
I first thank you all, and what a question. What is my experience? I am in awe of the work that happened, and that is continuing to happen. I sit at Cal all the time around a bunch of scholars who do not look like me necessarily, and it's always great to be in a room with Black thinkers and Black artists who have done the work and are continuing to do the work. So I'm just in awe. So thank you.
Okay, and thank everybody for coming.